Alright, welcome to this episode's Captain Castle Laboratory, where we're going to take apart a Lemax Village Collection Swan Ride. Here's the swans. I don't have all the accessories out. The accessories don't do anything. But I have it on. I can hear it. But we're getting very... There we go. It's not dragging these guys. It moved them into place, but it's not moving the swans. So it's also not turning off. So unplug it. Now I haven't opened it up, but I did take all the screws out. There's a handful on the bottom, just for time saving. I thought I took all the screws out. So yeah, all the screws are out. So carefully flip it over. So here it is. I'll put the plug back in since we have it turned over. And it looks like well, there's only 4 magnets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like there could be a whole bunch more the way they have this thing set up. She's working good. I think the problem is this disc, this plate. The plate is... Yeah, those are the magnets. The plate is... Oh, she stopped. Oh. Belt's bad. The reason it wouldn't turn off is it has a micro switch. Got it. Okay. So if we turn the power off, it's going to keep running. And I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Allergy season. It's not over yet. And that's the one that turns it off. Very interesting track setup. I'm actually kind of impressed with it. The way they have the cutouts for the arms right here. It almost looks like a transition, but it's not. The rotating discs in the middle. So it can do its thing. This base was probably used for other items since it does have a speaker hole and there's no sound on this piece. So it's a pretty interesting base. I am going to change the belt. The belt is bad. It is slipping. I'm watching it. The motor will spin and then this will slow down and these will slow down a hair. But I'm thinking the problem is this is domed. It's domed really badly to where it's a bowl on this side. So it's concave on one side, convex on the other. And it's starting to separate from its glued studs. What I believe is happening is instead of these resting on the magnet, it's hovering too high so it can't catch. So I've already cleaned the disc, the top side, because I pulled it out. It was sticky and slimy. Probably a lubrication from being in a box on its side had come out. I'm also going to put these screws in. I don't know why these screws are out. It's kind of weird. These 2 screws right here. I'm just checking the gear and I'm feeling it with my finger. If there's a fractured gear, I'll feel the clicking, which there isn't, but I'm also checking the teeth as I'm spinning it. So I'm spinning it slower than the motor. You can hear the motor spinning because the micro switch is disengaged. So as long as that micro switch is disengaged, it's going to keep spinning unless you kill its power. So this is a resetting piece. So this is a piece that you would not want to turn off unless from anything other than the switch. I'm not sure why it has to reset though. That is very interesting. A resetting pieces usually have to reset for a reason. There's really no reason for this to reset. Alright, so this belt's thicker, and you probably see it in the camera maybe. It's also a different type of material. I love these belts. I got these belts from Skull Crane Electronics, and I have bought a couple of kits of them. They're more elasticy, they're slightly thicker, and they're sticky. I mean, I can't describe. They're not sticky like glue. They're just a stickier material, so there's less slippage on the mechanism. And the reason this arm will bypass it, and most likely this arm, is because only one of the three arms has a protrusion that will smack this sensor. This arm. So as long as the arm doesn't lift when it hits the sensor, it's going to smack it and turn it off. So only one of the three engages the micro switch. So this must be its starting point. Maybe if you take the characters off, you know that you have a character over here, a character over here, a character over here, a character over here. I am not sure why they have a reset on this. But at the moment, it looks like it just needs a belt, done. The screws tightened, done. A little bit of lubrication, which I'm going to add. I'm going to add some to the track. There is some on the inner track and a little bit here, but it's pretty spotty. But I want to add some for the rest of this. And then I want to add it to maybe the spinning disc here. And then we're going to have to work on this. So that's right, micro switch. Yeah, it's all sticky. It's supposed to be a lubricant, but it's not very lubricating. So this is the gear here that drives these teeth. These are just held in with gravity. And I have some of the lubrication that came from Happy Holiday Parts, which is basically a white lithium, white silicone. Put some on the center shaft. There's nothing on the bottom of that plate to drive anything, and I'm sure this is the same way. This is the one with the magnet. This one is glued. There's a dab of glue all around the center. There's nothing on the bottom, so there's no need for lubrication there. I'm going to put a little bit on these tracks once I get these things back into place. make sure that all three pieces sit into their track locations. Just going to put a couple of dabs in different spots and let the arms sweep across them and drag the grease to where it needs to go. And I'm going to put a little bit on the gear here and the gear there. There we go. This is glue for that circuit board. Apparently that circuit board is glued to the bottom, which make it really hard to take apart. Good. And it is smearing the grease nicely across the edges. It's going to take a little of the fell off and screw it back on. So accessing this is pretty simple. You just take the screws out of the bottom, just these outer screws. There's none under the 4 feet that have the rubber pads. And then carefully lift the top off. It does get caught a little bit on the edge because there's a little plastic protrusion on a couple of the sides that grab in here. Pop it open, you're good to go. And as far as lubricating it, pull the center screw out, put a dab of lubrication on the center of the hub so that way when it rotates it's good. Put some on the edges of the tracks. You can lubricate these pivot points. I don't know if you saw how shiny and greasy they were when they came apart, since again they're only held in by gravity. And put a little bit on the gears. I put some on there, and it is, when it rotates, it's pushing it in to where it needs to go. So at the moment, it just needed a belt and a couple of screws put down and some lubrication. Now we need to work on this upper track, this upper piece. Also need to make sure these wires don't get pinched or caught into the moving parts. Turn it off. So there we go. There we go. Yeah, I think this is the biggest issue, is this bulge. Trying to see if the magnets will catch any of these. There's a magnet coming up right there. Okay, we got one that's caught for a second. We got two. Yeah. So the problem is this disc is bowed. We got to figure out how to fix this disc. And then this will probably have to be polished to make it smoother. Might try and polish it a little bit when we remove it. I'm gonna wait till it powers off. Like that. Remove the power. And we're gonna flip it over again. So the circuit board's pretty basic. Well, we have it on this side. You have a capacitor on both sides of the board. They're probably just smoothing capacitors for the motor and the power. This thing doesn't have lights or anything. And again. So it's white laminated plastic that has green print, and then there's a clear layer of plastic on top of it, which is what the actual felt slides on. And then they have a seam right here that goes all the way around. Now both the the white plastic and the clear plastic is bubbled, where it's separating here and it's separating here and here. So I'm going to see if there's a way to maybe heat this and make it uniform. Get rid of this dome. Gonna have to do some checks on what we can do for this. But yeah, this thing is, it's a bowl. We need to get rid of that bowl. We need this to sit as close to flat on top of these magnets as possible. And I need to figure out how we're going to get rid of the bubbles. Because the bubbles can cause a problem too, because it's a high spot. As the character comes, goes up and down over the bubble. And that's where these center magnets go. And that bubble can cause it to break magnetism, because it's a decent magnet, but it's not like super strong. If it was, you'd probably have a hard time moving. And we're going to clean this off. This is all slimy and sticky. The lubrication has picked up so much dust and debris, it's become hard and sticky. So now I have heard of a trick to polish these, which is using furniture polish. I have not personally tried it. I've just been told about it. I do have furniture polish, and we're going to try that on this piece after I try and clean as much of the residue off as possible. I use isopropyl alcohol and use 91% or higher when you're cleaning. It removes everything. The stuff I have right here next to me is 99%, which you can get on Amazon. I can link it below. It comes in these gallon jugs. So if you use a lot of alcohol, then you can use this. So a little bit of sticky right there. Oops. Now you can see it's a lot cleaner. We do have some etching from the metal into the plastic, but there's no more residue streaks. That's what I was going for. And to get rid of the stickiness. Alcohol will evaporate on its own, but I'm going to assist it with a little bit more drying here. So, there we go. It's nice and slick. It's not sticky. These really aren't sticky. I'll clean those too. I'm only cleaning the magnets. It's the only real part of the thing that touches anything. Yeah. So, next step is to figure out how to get rid of the bow. It's going to require heat, I know that for a fact, but I need to figure out how to do this without curling it into a ball. I might have to sandwich it between two things and maybe pop it in the oven for a few minutes. Sounds kind of funny. But that might be the route. I'm going to do some research on how to flatten plastic. I know when it's something normal, I wouldn't care as much if I was doing a project, but this is not a replaceable part, so we got to figure out how to make this as flat as possible. Yeah, you can see that big old curve. So, gonna have to wait and heat. So, I'll do some research, see what I can find. We'll be back in a moment. See you in a second. Alright, we're back with the Swan ride, and I had to do a lot of modifications to make a new slip disc. I searched everywhere, and I could not find a replacement, because here's the original. The sliding layer on top turned white, so you can't see it anymore, trying to flatten it, and then it's all pockmarked. And the pockmarks cause the characters not to spin. So what I ended up doing is I got a parts piece, which is the ice skating ring. Here's the thing. I got it from the owner of this. She doesn't use this, and it's just been sitting, so I used it for parts. Now, the ice skating ring center is smaller. It's kind of with this egg-shaped disc in the middle, hence this egg-shaped cutout. What I ended up doing was taking the big white piece, this, tracing the egg shape onto it, and then cutting on the inside of the line. This egg, the slip on the bottom, and then the top piece are two separate pieces, just like this, or this was one piece. Let's see if I can match up the pockmarks. So this sat right about here. So I cut it out and then separated the two pieces, used Gorilla Spray adhesive, which is what I use usually for the bottoms, and then so that way the center of this, all about a 1/4 inch or less all the way around, and this is back to its original slip disc. I tried filming it, I didn't realize that the camera didn't actually record, so I'm trying to explain what I did, so I apologize. Because this disc, as you can see, is narrower than this, I had to fill in the outside. I thought about using the green, but that would look really weird having this green stuff and then it going into almost a perfect egg-shaped center. So I'm like, yeah, I'll just use the white that used to be clear. So, put it all back together. And luckily, the part that spins fits on that egg shape, so it's not going to catch the pock marks over here. Everything spins in that inner ring. The base for the ice skating rink is exactly the same as this. And I'm talking the base, except that this one uses batteries versus a power port. It's the same size, slightly different shape on this end. It's not as rounded, but I'm figuring, oh great, it would work perfectly. Unfortunately, the hole in the top, smaller. Not by much, but just enough to cause a problem. So that's why I had to do some customization and making a dual layer laminate. She could, the owner, technically put some bushes in here or paint it. I'm going to give her back this piece. If she wants, she can cut it and fit it in, because you can see the track of the characters. The outer ones go on the inside here, and then they get really close to the edge here. They don't hit it, but they get close. So if you just watch, you can see it's close. So I mean, you could actually fill this in with more shrubbery. You could try and paint it, mask it off, paint it, cut this into an arc and stick it under. Any number of things to fill it in. If I find a replacement disc, and again, the reason I call this a slip disc is the top of this, actually the bottom of this is slick for the magnets, and then the top of this is slick for the felt on the bottom of these characters. That. So, it should catch right after the umbrella goes across its head. or not. But the, I don't know where it is. There it is. The nobody has this. The manufacturer doesn't help, of course. I have checked with every place I could find in the US that has Lemax, old or new, parts or not, or any mini village. I was even looking for the ice skating rinks from Department 56, because some of those are huge, and I just need the disc. The owner of this didn't care that it was green, which I think is weird, that you're going around this pond that's green. You definitely don't want to fall in it, because, you know, green usually indicates bacteria or algae. Or at least with the white, it kind of looks like you're going around on ice. So I'm surprised it's not blue, you know, water, not green. Disgusting. But to each their own. It's probably because they just blended it in. So, but that's it. The new stuff inside, and a modified sliding disc or sliding top. And this is one that resets, so when you turn off the power, it continues to run until whichever one of these three has the pusher that hits the micro switch. So apparently it's that one, because the pusher is over, the micro switch is over here. So it could be one of these three arms. So it is a resetting piece. So this isn't one that you want to have disconnected from the power. So if you have it on a power strip, power supply that you turn off, you want to make sure you reset it here. Technically, it's not going to do any, I shouldn't say any, because Murphy, it shouldn't do any damage. It's a very basic circuit board that just controls the power to the motor. It's a regulated motor. There's no lights, there's no sound. You saw the little circuit board, it's itty bitty. It really doesn't even need it. If that circuit board burns out, you could literally just hot wire the motor to the switch with a smoothing capacitor, so it's not so noisy feeding back on your power supply. And when you turn it off, it stops wherever it's at. Turn it on, it starts wherever it's going. Not a big deal. But for some reason, they overcomplicated it and made it so it has a reset point. And again, I don't know why. It doesn't technically need it. If this had a burned out circuit board, I would remove all of the circuitry and just run power to switch, one wire, and then power to motor, one wire, and then switch to motor, one wire, remove the entire circuit board, remove the micro switch, throw it out all the way, take the capacitor that's on the circuit board, solder it across the back of the motor, which if you look at a lot of motors, I don't know if I like this one, it's got a little capacitor. It's a smoothing capacitor. It just takes rid of the magnetic field noise of the motor. This is Department 56 and Mr. Christmas. They do that. Lemax doesn't put it across their motor. They usually put it on a circuit board going to the motor. But the point is you don't need the circuit board. So if you have one that fails, you can bypass it all and just make it on-off, or on-off, meaning not unplugging it, but having a power supply switch, which a lot of people do. You have an entire village, you have a power strip with an on-off button, and boom, it's on, boom, it's off. I do not know why this is a resetting piece, but it is. It's just extra money they put into it. It's over engineered for what it does, since there are no lights and no sound. So but other than that, sorry that you couldn't see how I did the disc. But like I said, you can get a basic idea. If you imagine this, trace this onto it, cut out the center, and then because it's two pieces, separate them, stick the outer ring glue only on the outer ring. You don't glue across the entire piece. So when I sprayed the glue, I know this isn't the glue, but when I sprayed, I put on a cardboard box and I started on the out edge and then brought it in to where it just barely coated the outer ring to adhere. Then I put a very light misting in the center to hold the upper piece to the lower piece, because of course there's a hole in the middle. And that's just so this upper piece doesn't slide when it's going around in circles. But hopefully that helps. It's a very simplistic piece, but if your slip discs are bad, the top or the bottom, you're going to have a problem. And the problem is locating it. This type of plastic, this brittle, thin stuff, I found pieces of it here and there, but nothing big enough to cut out this shape, which is weird. But I found small pieces, but nothing big enough, as you can see here. So if I can find the type of plastic, I'll eventually update the description. Even Mr. Christmas, the guy in Florida, Victor, he can't remember what it's called either, the type of plastic. But the problem he's had when he's recreated these is after a season they crack, because this stuff is really brittle. It sounds flexible and all that, but it's actually really brittle. I mean, you can feel that if you flex this too much, it's going to split. This is the same way. This is a little bit more flexible than this, and it might be because this is painted. Also, if you just take this top layer off, let's say your top layer is damaged and you just throw it away, but your bottom layer is nice and smooth and not all pockmarked, you could run them on here. Even with the felt though, the felt will eventually erode or wear through the plastic, the paint on the plastic, not the plastic itself. It'll wear through the paint, which some pieces, especially older ones, if any of you have any, you'll know that you'll see the spin lines where it's cutting in, and usually that's because dust gets on this and then it starts acting like sandpaper and grinding it down into nothing. So, but anyhow, that's the Lemax Swan boat ride, not to get confused with the Lemax Swan ride, which apparently are two different things. And the Lemax Swan one is much smaller than the boat ride, which is much larger. Very simplistic. Everything can be repaired or modified. The hardest part is going to be that slip disc. So, and again, if I find a slip disc, a replacement green, I find a parts piece somewhere that this is in good shape, I will take this back apart, since they live local, meaning they live within the state. They're not like next door or anything, don't get me wrong. But we'll get this fixed with the original green. Personally, like I said, I'd prefer like a blue, but it's me. So anyway, that concludes this. Hopefully it didn't bore you to death, and hopefully my explanation of how I cut the center out to fit this made some sense. And if I come across another one, we'll have to do something similar. Of course, I'll make sure the camera is working. Technology it says it was recording, but the card was blank. So this is a follow-up to the original filming. So, and also don't forget, lubricate your stuff. This is the super lube that you get from Mr. Christmas. You can also get it at superlube.com. Right there. Hopefully you can read it. And this is what Mr. Christmas sends when you buy a complete gear package. I do only put that on the moving parts, so the pivots. The track, there's the three pivots, or the two tracks, just on the pivots, not on the slip disc itself. Slip disc itself, you can use very thin oil or a wax to coat the bottom. Do not put it on the magnets. Trust me, it doesn't work very well. Also picks up a lot of debris and sticks it to the bottom of the plastic. So, and of course, the gear drive mechanism, you can use it on that too. So you don't have to. You can use white lithium grease or a white silicone grease. Stay away from oils if you can, because oils will pick up the dirt faster than the greases will. Make sure the grease is thin grease and not some thick, heavy like axle grease where you're globbing it on and it has to hit a certain temperature to start getting liquefied or broke down. So the hobby grease, you can probably get a lot of hobby greases at stores, like hobby stores and or stores that sell trains. But anyway, that sums up this one. Again, hopefully it wasn't too boring. Until the next repair, have a good one.